All right, good afternoon. Paul Swanson with you, and good Sunday afternoon. Hope you remembered to spring forward. If you didn't, you haven't missed anything, really. Probably feel a little bit better having not missed an hour's worth of sleep. But be that as it may, it is Sunday afternoon. Yes, we're now on daylight savings time. I don't know why, but we really should. Instead of our Congress critters debating some of the things they've been debating in the last week or two, maybe they ought to address daylight savings time. Just saying. Anyway, Congress critters and a proposal that a friend of mine, Mr. Willie Lawson of the Willie Lawson Show, had put forward, which I thought was pretty good. And I'll see if I can remember what Willie had, the explicit, specific details, but the Congress is putting forth, or somebody in Congress wants to put forth a proposal to lower the voting age to 16. No, sorry, isn't going to work. For a whole number of reasons, which I know Willie had looked up the science on it, and 16-year-old brains just aren't really capable of making those types of decisions. And, I mean, do you remember what you were doing at 16? Were you really concerned about who was going to be president or your congressman or representative? No. What he said is, raise the voting age to 25 for, general elections, your local, statewide, and for, let's say, Congress, both Senate and House races. So your statewide races, your local, mayoral, local representative, city council, that sort of thing. Raise that to 25. And for presidential, we raise that to 35. You actually have some, you're of that same age, you've got some more experience under your belt, and you can, at that point, start to make more informed decisions. Now, the only caveat on this, or the only change on that, would be that those are hard and fast rules. Those rules are enforced via voter ID. You've got to show a voter ID when you go to vote. Your voter ID has your date of birth on there, and if you're there to vote, you can't vote. You're age-appropriate voting. So that's gonna determine how you vote, or what ballot you receive at the polling place for your voting, which I kind of like. Now, the only caveat to that, or the only exception to that, would be if you are between the ages of 18 and 25 for the local voting, and 35 for presidential elections. If you are a first responder, policeman, fireman, paramedic, if you are on active duty with the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines, Coast Guard. If you are on active duty and serving your country, voting age goes back to 18 for everything across the board. I like that. If our Congress was more concerned about making sure that the voting is done in an appropriate manner, and there's a whole nother issue about, since the Democrats and the progressives are so bent out of shape about interference in voting, there's a whole nother conversation we can have at some point about secure voting via the blockchain. Like I said, that's a whole nother issue. So, but I like that. If our Congress critters were more concerned about who's voting, that we don't have, because they did approve, or at least there was a proposal in Congress that illegals could vote in local elections. Well, no, sorry guys, you once again have proven that you do not understand or are capable of grasping the concept of illegal immigrant or illegal alien. They have no rights to vote. Not sorry about that. Not sorry about that. They are illegal. They are not here illegally in the country, and therefore are not afforded any of the benefits thereof. The other, so that was put forth, and in that whole voting thing, this past, I think it was Thursday, the House put forth and voted on Resolution H.R. 183. You can look it up. Just Google it. You can find it. It's real short. It's 7 pages. And you know what? I've read it. If you read it, it doesn't take very long. You read it, it looks like a bunch of 16-year-olds that put the damn thing together. and it's, this was made a big deal by the mainstream media, and it got garnered lots of news attention, courtesy of our next door neighbor, state of Minnesota, and their representative Omar. It's a resolution. It's not binding. It doesn't. If you read the thing, it says it's a lot of double speak, gobbledygook, political speak. I don't know what you want to call it. There's not really a coherent thought in it. It's a lot of whereas. I think almost or nearly every sentence in the 7 pages starts whereas, and then they cite a particular egregious identity group or incident is cited. Okay, that's great, fine. What are you trying to say? It really boils down, as I was having a conversation with the lovely and talented lady of the house, you learn real early when you went to school, and probably in kindergarten, or maybe as you started grade school and were out on the playground, hey, you know what? You be nice to one another. It's not nice to call people names. It's not nice to pick fights. Real early, you learn, or it's passed on to you from your family, hopefully. But if the family doesn't pass it on, maybe the family has, but then, a teacher or maybe somebody at your local house of worship, wherever you might go, has instilled in you that concept of, hey, you know what? Be nice to one another. Don't have to have a congressional resolution that states the obvious, which anybody with a working synapse and a couple of working neurons ought to be able to figure out, that you're just nice to folks. Be polite, say please and thank you, hold the door for ladies, gentlemen, when you're walking in and out of a building. It's just basic common sense items. We don't need a house resolution. And how much time was spent, speechwriters or legislative drafters, how much time was spent drafting, crafting, wordsmithing that 7 pages of House Resolution 183, and then how much debate or how much pontificating was done by those members in the House about how this is a great leap forward and great step forward for understanding and whatnot and what have you. I don't know. I didn't watch any of it, but you sort of wonder how much of their time was wasted doing something like this that could have been spent otherwise in pursuit of real issues that are facing our country today. But since that was not a part of it, and the instigator of the whole issue, which brought it to the floor of the House of Representatives, wasn't even mentioned in the damn thing. It just, it makes no sense. Everybody knew, hey, let's not talk about the elephant in the room or the turd in the punch bowl, but we all know what we're talking about. So that they're afraid to speak out and identify the problem specifically speaks volumes about the whole issue as well. So that is that. So just those couple of things. A little water on the road there. It snowed overnight here. So just those couple of things. Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin today, we had about 2 or 3 inches of snow overnight. Not anywhere near what they were talking about in this winter storm warning that they were predicting. It's 32, 33 degrees. The snow is all melting. Lots of water running in the... Well, there's lots of standing water because the water has nowhere to go because there's so much snow. So there's lots of puddles, lots of standing water, lots of slush. And it's fun. The coming week, at least the forecast is for temperatures in the upper 20s to 30s, which is good because now some of this, the snow can start to melt, but I'm not quite sure where all the water's going to go. We could start to have some issues with that. But it's nice, finally. Spring is maybe just around the corner, or if it's not around the corner, it's down the block a little bit. And that'll be nice. I've had the snowblower out this morning, and maybe might be the last time. I'm not putting it away. I'm not wrapping it all up and going to put it in the corner of the garage thinking that I'm not going to have to use it again, because sure enough, as I do that, we're going to get blasted. So, because last year, about a month from now, in the middle of April, in fact it was what, April 18th I think, something like that, as I seem to remember, we got a big snowstorm, and had about 1.5 feet of snow in the drive. So we could do without that this year. Thank you very much. So, hey, have a great rest of your Sunday. Thanks for listening. Share this if you would, please. Like, share, let your friends know, comment. And thanks for everything. We'll talk with you all again real soon.